there's nothing more rewarding than unlocking your passion towards your path, purpose, and ultimately the mission. So I couldn't be more grateful in that respect to do what we've done, to collaborate and build what we built out. And I think always fondly, even just where we began the journey in the Magic Mansion, where I found my logo at the bottom of the well in the courtyard. I think this is still just getting started. So fired up for what we've cultivated here. The growth is a testimonial to that in terms of what we've been seeing coming into the community and the active nature of the involvement of all of our members benefiting from what we've cultivated is beautiful to see. I'm just really basking in so many of the testimonials that are starting to come through in terms of how we're actually changing people's lives.
Let's zoom back. If you recall, we had this conversation. You reached out to me and you said, let's work together. Do you recall how my offering fit into the vision you wanted to bring forward?
Yeah, good question. I do remember, because it was the summertime leading into some of the bigger changes I started making, but I was right in the midst of the depths of my internal transformation and deeper healing coming out of corporate. I used to be a management consultant, and it was a very high pressure, highly political environment that was killing me on the inside and eventually on the outside, manifested into physical symptoms, even where I couldn't even get out of bed. I had a sciatic nerve that was bothering me. In fact, there was points where I didn't want to get out of bed anymore. And working through that, I figured out ways to pivot. I turned my home into an Airbnb, which had its own challenges, but I was right in the midst of that. Then I had decided that I wanted to actually sell the place to free myself, because I knew if I just kept churning inside of that ecosystem, that also wasn't a long-term solution, because I couldn't actually free up my energy to build my project. And that was around the time that I reached out to you and said, you know what? This is the moment where I need to put this at the forefront, and was finally ready to take on what felt like a mountain of a task. I had a vision of what I wanted to cultivate, but it still felt like you're looking from sea level up at Mount Everest going like, oh, that's a long way to climb. And I felt alone in that endeavor. I think all the entrepreneurs and people doing things on their own, when you take matters into your own hands, you have this sense of like, you're kind of by yourself. That's a very lonely feeling at times. It's a very challenging one to work through. So when I started learning about creation codes and a little bit of the process that was available to me in my orbit, that really resonated with me, because I knew that this was just the next step in the growth phase I needed to unlock what was inside and I had an idea about, but no structure to go after it, and no prior precedent of experience to uplift me and hold the space so that I could allow those things to flow and make sense of them. There was a lot of great ideas and maybe scattered visions, but I didn't have a way to harness it and be able to point my energy in the right directions at the right times to actually make progress. If I had done it on my own, that could have taken years, because you're just kind of trial and error. Of course, you can do it. And I am a believer in messy action rather than being stagnant. But at the same time, it's like, no, let's get the right people in the room around me, build a team. I knew that from my management consulting days, because we always worked in teams. I knew the effectiveness of having the right people in the room. So this was a natural extension for me. And then obviously we had, on maybe a more personal level, interest in cultivating our relationship around the things that I was super excited and passionate about: sovereignty of wealth and cryptocurrency. an unlocking tool in that endeavor. And so we were just having fun going back and forth, chit-chatting about all those things for a long time, and even trying some things together along that journey. Of course, there's many facets and details that we could deep dive into for probably hours, but at a high level, it was the support that I needed that I finally realized, hey, you don't have to do this alone. And there are systematic ways and structures that we can put in place here to help unlock the dream, essentially. I had had a couple disastrous experiences trying to find other coaches. I think the coaching space in general is full of nonsense and bad actors, some nefarious, some not, some just oblivious, people masquerading as a coach where they are not. I actually got myself into one of those and learned what felt like a very harsh lesson at that time. Looking back, that's always no regrets and just part of the growth curve. But it's a messy space. And if you're out there on your own trying to find the way, you're going to be riddled with roadblocks, hurdles, and painful experiences. So I think it was the fresh approach that Creation Codes presented to me that was attractive to me because it more closely aligned with my metaphysical journey. It's not just a out-of-the-box solution. This is a tailored experience that is bespoke and fit for purpose for you in your unique journey, which is a fingerprint. This is not a shoehorn. It's not a one size fits all. Those were some of the things that really attracted me because I had had experiences like that where I got myself into a coaching container and was like, okay, everyone just do the same thing. Here's the process and off you go. I was already exhausted by the prior job. So when somebody told me that, and I was supposed to be looking up to them as a mentor, it really got me shaking my head going, what did I get myself into here? Because that certainly didn't resonate in the slightest. I did honor it. I went through the process and there are good pieces that I learned in that. It's not that it doesn't work, but that was not for me. These types of offerings that are out there are a dime a dozen. And this was just totally different. It was a different approach than I had ever heard anyone explain to me. And I was ready for undertaking that next evolution in the metaphysical journey, but then actually harnessing that so that I could produce something in the external. It takes a lot of the inner parts working on those things. It's like a bridge to allow it to manifest in the external, which I feel like most coaching programs just are dealing with the external. It has nothing necessarily to do with what's happening inside. In fact, some of them didn't even provide that kind of support whatsoever. There was no proximity. There was no care about where you were actually at and what was going on in your life. Because I do remember so many instances in our calls where the duty of care was just so great. And sometimes it would just be talking through something unrelated to even building the business. All the business stuff in the external, that's just a reflection of what we're doing inside as human beings. And so this has a human factor that I haven't not seen in many, if any, other programs.
What I feel stops most people from even putting in the effort and energy and going into that particular direction is the fear of looking like a fool, the fear of being wrong or being criticized, judged, or misunderstood. All of the business symptoms are really unconscious emotional patterns in disguise. So I don't think that's able to be skipped or swept under the carpet. It is a continuous unfolding and journey of improving the processes, leaning into what it means to be of service to somebody else. Okay. Switching gears more to the results after what was a year and a half of collaboration, going really deeply within and then finding out who exactly you are in service to, and then start building assets, which inevitably led to a launch of the Crypto Concierge flagship. That was a success. It's oversold. Beautiful problems to be had.
Yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing because what we put into cultivating this whole thing culminated in a level of depth in trust with the people in the orbit of the concierge, so much so that we didn't even have to do any marketing. By the time the flagship was ready to go, I already had people wanting to sign up, and I overfilled the container past even what I thought I would be comfortable starting with, because we were going to do that first iteration, the beta launch. And I said, okay, if I could get 2 or 3 people to do that with as clients, that would be a huge victory. We ended up with double that. And I didn't have to ask anyone in the public. All I did was share the pre-launch and a bit of a celebration of getting there. And people were magnetized into the orbit and resonated with what we had cultivated so deeply that we didn't even have to do the traditional lead into the launch, which can last for months or certainly weeks, especially if we're talking about a high ticket offer that has loads of value, but also takes a commitment and conviction from the client. I think we were both pleasantly surprised at how that unfolded in a matter of a few short weeks, because that was in the summertime. We had prepped the pre-launch, gave ourselves about a month. I remember doing the pre-launch call where I socialized the journey, everything I had been on up to that point and why I was doing what I was doing, and that we were finally ready to launch. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, I guess we're done. We're only a couple weeks later. So that caught both of us off guard in a beautiful way. That's a testament to the organic process that we were just speaking to a few moments ago, that maybe taking the time and doing it right and allowing for the inner journey to start revving its own engine, it quickly caught up in the external. There's no better example of that phenomenon.
That was a very good surprise. And then only a few months down the road, magnetizing all of the different opportunities and bringing on different partnerships, you've managed to completely supplement your previous 6-figure income. And you're now in a very good spot.
I would say that's an understatement. This is happening very fast. With the launch of the flagship, I was getting very close to the income from the consulting career. By virtue of magnetizing and honing the relationships, the opportunities and partnerships, we have many of them. And a few have become so powerful that now it's not just about meeting the old world income, but eclipsing it to the tune of 4, 5x. I anticipate that will continue to the point that very soon it could even be in the order of a 10x. These are not small results. They are what a lot of people would look at and go, really? That's possible? That's the zone we're in. Only 6 months out from when we closed out the first inaugural flagship offering. We're talking about half a year to more than eclipse everything that I ever knew in my old paradigm.
If you had to convince a friend to give this a try, and you only had 1 minute to explain why they should do it, what would you say?
I would say start with the Magic Mansion. I didn't even have a full understanding of what the journey might be like. And that experience initially starting there really blew me away. Even in the first instance, it's such a powerful exercise to undertake. So I would say just carve out a couple hours in your schedule and just delve into that. You'll see that this is an unconventional yet very needed approach, that it will be unlike anything you've experienced, especially if you're living the old corporate lifestyle, coming into a longing for something different and new. This has the energetics of everything that we want to release as well. So it's a breath of fresh air. Start there.
Beautiful. And just for anybody who's not necessarily aware, Magic Mansion is a digital experience that is built essentially on Jungian methodology for tapping active imagination. Imagine dreaming during the night. It's just that you're actually awake, which is akin to lucid dreams, where you're able to navigate the character in full awareness, tapping into the tap roots of the unconscious. I offered that as a self-standing digital product, and I'm going to throw the link inside.
So thank you for that.
Amazing.
And
Thank you, Eddie.